And welcome back, everyone, to Who Would Win. Today's Who Would Win comes to us from Brandon Overstreet, who asked the question, who do I think would win in a fight? Ichigo Kurosaki. You always got to say it in the Kenpachi voice. Ichigo Kurosaki versus Ghostrider. Oh, can you handle this? The cage is burning his face off. Now, this is an interesting fights. If we're talking about how they kind of scale to each other, they're actually not that far apart in terms of scaling. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But if we're talking about ability versus ability, it gets very tricky. So obviously we know Ghostrider, aka normally it's Johnny Blaze. There are other individuals who have been Ghostrider, but it's normally Johnny. Hosts the spirit of vengeance, Zarathos, who used to be an angel. And it became basically the devil's bounty hunter. Then got free of the devil's curse, and so forth and so on. Lots of shenanigans have happened with the Ghostrider, Johnny, all that. But point being, the Ghostrider is an insanely powerful, at its peak, godlike being in the Marvel Universe. I'm gonna adjust my seat real quick. There we go. I'm so tiny. Just the angle of the camera. But he, on just a base form, he's a humanoid individual, sure, but his strength is capable of going toe to toe with some of Marvel's strongest physical hitters because he's enhanced by Hellfire. He's enhanced by supernatural strength. His body is much stronger than it looks. But I mean, he's not like the Hulk or Juggernaut, but he can take hits from these guys and keep going. This is due to the fact that as Ghostrider, he's really only susceptible to supernatural attacks. Holy weapons are definitely a weakness of him, but in theory, you can exercise the spirit of vengeance itself. Any sort of supernatural abilities can just work against the Ghostrider. You just need to have the right level of power to go against it. Same with something like Galactus, who in theory, as a cosmic being, could take on the Ghostrider. It's just... He's also been hit by the penance stare before, so take that for what it is. That being said, durability, he can just keep getting back up from most damage. I mean, he'll still get damage, he just can repair himself. Like, he can get hit by the Juggernaut and then get back up, or smashed by Hulk and get back up and be like, oh, that hurt a little bit. Let's go again. He can do that. But if you're dealing with like holy weapons or supernatural effects or magic, those are things that can in fact hurt the Ghostrider. Or you're got the ability to attack the actual soul of the Ghostrider, the spiritual essence of it. Ghostrider is obviously famous for wielding a flaming chain, riding his bike. He can technically make anything his mount. But really what's dangerous about that isn't the chain or the mount, it's the hellfire that's coming from that. Hellfire obviously is a fire, for those of us in the know, which is any nerd probably watching this video, is a fire that not just can burn your flesh, and it can burn your flesh, but it also literally attacks your soul and can burn it to a cinder. Ghostrider is capable of literally just eating souls if he wants to. He's also capable of using the penance stare to just inflict so much pain that you could just burn a soul to cinders. The penance stare takes all the pain you've ever but the user. The penance stare takes the pain of the target, all the pain they've ever inflicted on someone, and throws it back on him. And sometimes that can literally just burn your soul out of existence. At his peak, Zarathos, when he's in full activation, has kept going toe-to-toe with someone like Mephisto, who went toe-to-toe with someone like Galactus, which is why the Ghostrider is one of the strongest individuals at its peak, one of the strongest individuals in the Marvel Universe. Not like top 10, but in terms of like our base heroes, he could go toe-to-toe and beat Thor in a fight if he really wanted to. That's how strong the Ghostrider at its peak is. Doctor Strange even goes, I don't want to F with this guy. And that's a guy who pops supernovas like Tic Tacs, who can really bend the fabric of reality. He's like, no, I'm good. But as we said, the Ghostrider's not infallible. In magic, supernatural attacks, holy weapons specifically, and anyone who could actually hurt the spirit, the soul of the Ghostrider would be deemed a threat. Segue to Ichigo, who we know is the protagonist of Bleach. Right out the gate, let me get something out of the way right now. The penance stare would not do a damn thing to Ichigo. Ichigo is a good person. Yeah, he's hurt people, sure, and he's even blamed himself for his mother's death, but his mother's death wasn't his fault, and the Ghostrider's penance stare would know that. So no, Ichigo has only ever tried to defend people and help people, so the penance stare wouldn't do a damn thing to him. Hell, honestly, the penance stare, if you think about individuals in Bleach, the penance stare wouldn't even hurt someone like Kenpachi. Kenpachi, while he certainly killed individuals, has never done it out of malice, and he's never hurt individuals who are innocent. He's only ever fought for the joy of it, and he stops when the fight can't go on any longer. It's like, nah, dying is useless. What can a dead man do? He can't fight anymore. Now, if that person just comes in at him again saying, come back here, it's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. But yeah, he probably wouldn't really be affected by the penance stare that much either, because the individuals he's hurt were actually worse individuals. No, there aren't. I mean, like, Mayuri definitely would be affected by the penance stare. Ichibe is a possibility. I didn't think, because Ichibe is very gray, bleeding into maybe a little bit of shades of black. I digress, though. But point being, the penance stare wouldn't work on Ichigo. Ichigo, obviously we know, is the main character. He's a hybrid of human, Shinigami, and Hollow, as well as and Quincy, who are humans, but still, he's normal human, Quincy, Hollow, and Shinigami rolled into one, which made him a candidate to be the Soul King, the individual who actually holds the entire reality of Bleach together, in case the Soul King had to replace. But no, his energy level is therefore extremely high, like his spiritual pressure energy output. It's debatable whether or not he's actually the strongest individual in the series, though. I actually don't. Despite how strong Ichigo got, I don't think he's the strongest person in the series. Aizenai, for example, I think still technically surpasses him. Yuaba, we know, surpassed him as well. I mean, he's definitely up there. He's definitely one of the strongest guys in the series at this point. His abilities, though, aren't all that vast. He can move it beyond. He can move over light speed, because we know Flash Up is light speed. Things like Sarah's move at light speed. And in fact, he can move much faster than that, as a matter of fact. He's got enhanced strength, but the strength really doesn't matter for the overall fight. He can enhance his strength with his Ryatsu, his energy. He can also enhance his durability with it as well, including using something called Blute, which is basically a Quincy technique that channels, if I remember correctly, it channels Ryatsu through your arteries and your veins. If I remember correctly, Blute vein, or vein, it's the way they, it's German, so I know it's Blute something or other. It's for the veins. I believe that's a defensive one. Blute arteria, I might be mispronouncing it, is for the offensive is the offensive side of it to increase your physicality for strength and attacking. So there's that, and he can utilize that. He can also go into a hybrid form of his Hollow and his Shinigami and Quincy powers, which just enhances everything. His Zanpakuto, Zangetsu, did initially take the form of this cleaver, then took the form of the small short blade and the long blade. And apparently right now he can, according to Kubo, he can actually switch between the single blade and the short blade. He can actually switch between them. The problem here is so it has the ability to get to Katencha, which basically essentially fires a crescent-shaped laser attack. It's an amplified swing, as it's described, but it's a laser. It's an arcing laser of spiritual energy. He also has Getsuga Jujisho, which is basically, if he's using the dual blades, he traces a line and then just slashes it and does like a cross, which is an enhanced attack. And then his Bankai. Now, his Bankai, which is the advanced form of Zanpakuto, like the full released form of Zanpakuto, for those of us who don't know Bleach. The initial Bankai basically compressed the sword into a standard black katana, a long katana, but a katana, which amplified everything about Ichigo's strength, his speed, everything. His new Tetsu Zangetsu, which basically combines the two swords he has together, we don't know what it does. We can infer some things, but until we get the actual answer on what Ichigo's sword actually does in that state, we can only go by, at the minimum, that it does the same thing it did with Ichigo's original Bankai to a much higher degree. Because Yuaba literally destroyed the Bankai before he was ever able to use it, because he's like, no, I saw what that can do. I am not going to let you get away with that. Still, it's very likely it actually has some other power as well. Some people think it's literally the ability to defy fate. But again, until that's actually proven. We can't go with just theories and speculations. We got to go by what we know. And what we know from the original Bankai was it was basically a physical buff Zanpakuto. He could fight even higher speeds, enhanced striking capabilities. He was able to, his sword was also a lot more manageable too. We can assume it's probably something along those lines, maybe enhanced to a certain degree. So we can say it's going to enhance his physicality even more. Now, why did I say that this fight is a lot closer in terms of scaling than earlier? Well, to start with, even though Zarathos can fight with individuals who move at light speed, Ichigo moves at light speed too. And he's moving at light speed just without any amps or anything like that. Zarathos needs to actually be brought out in order for the Ghostrider to really get to that levels of power. Without that, the Ghostrider is definitely on the losing side when it comes to, say, speed and when it comes to striking power. This is because even though the Ghostrider has Hellfire, Ichigo's Getsukatencho kind of not counters it, but can go toe-to-toe because it's a spiritual attack. Which leads me to the other point. Ichigo, when the Ichigo we would be using in this fight is a spiritual-based being, which means he can attack the spiritual. He fights spiritual beings as well. In essence, he could, in theory, and yes, he's not holy, obviously, but by all accounts, he should be able to legitimately hurt the Ghostrider. Maybe not kill him, at least not initially, unless he's going all out. But he should be able to hurt the Ghostrider. He himself is a spiritual being. The Ghostrider is a spirit of vengeance. It is a spirit. So he should be able to literally interact with the Ghostrider with his attacks. Now, when I talked about scaling, Ichigo, the Bleach verse of the big three, the Bleach verse is the strongest of the three verses of the big three, Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach. The Bleach verse is the strongest verse. I occasionally see people debate that. It's like there's no debate on it. Even if you're going with the Shibai alleged statements from Boruto, who's a fourth dimensional being, he transcended his body. Well, that's great. He still isn't like controlling a multiverse, as far as we know. He's more or less just like, I exist outside of things. That's no. The Bleach verse is the strongest verse there is. Because the Soul King, who Ichigo maybe isn't directly compared to, but is stated to be a candidate for the position of, literally holds the fabric of realities together. 3 equally sized universes, not planets, dimensions that we see, and that's not even including the Soul King's dimension. So there's that as well. But 3 equally sized dimensions that we know for a fact the human realm has, obviously, the whole expanding universe beyond that. And we also see that, Soul Society has stars and a sun. So they have a cosmology. So that's 3 equally sized at minimum galaxies, or solar systems, but more than likely universes. So the Bleach cosmology exists as a relatively small, mind you, but a multiverse nonetheless. And so the fact that Ichigo scales relative to an individual like that means that he is a low multiversal individual, whereas Yuaba was like a high or mid to high complex multiversal, given the Almighty and everything like that. Still, with that being said, so Ichigo, in actuality, Ichigo would really give the Ghostrider a hard time until Zarathos comes out, because he scales actually much higher than base Ghostrider does. Now, I say all that, making it sound like Ichigo's going to smack Ghostrider around. But the problem here for Ichigo is he doesn't have a counter for a lot of the Ghostrider's abilities. Yes, as we pointed out, the Panstare I don't think works on him. But Hellfire, by all counts, would work on him. And now, mind you, Ichigo's already in a spiritual form, so that's just, his power, or the form he's in. So it's not like he gets, like, the fire bypasses his skin and burns his soul. No, it's going to burn him. Now, that being said, Bleach has shown that you can negate attacks with your Ryatsu as long as it's large enough. So even though he has no effective countermeasure for the Hellfire apart from his energy, he still has his energy to just blast it away and counteract it. So there is that as well. No joke, Ghostrider is actually going to be on the losing side of this fight for a large portion of the fight. In fact, if Ichigo wanted to go all out against the Ghostrider early, he could probably put Zarathos down. Maybe not kill him, but incapacitate him completely. Actually injure the Ghostrider very badly. So, and But the problem is, I don't see Ichigo doing that. That's not in his personality, just like be on something. Now, granted, he might see this guy as something dangerous. And it's very possible if there was a crossover with Bleach and Marvel and these two met, I could see like a fight go down between them about a misunderstanding because he's sensing all this like weird, almost like hollow like Ryatsu or energy coming off this guy. And the Ghost Rider is sensing a very powerful enemy in this who could actually hurt him or is an individual who threatens him in some way. So I could see a misunderstanding fight happening, but the fight ultimately being like cut short. That being said, if Zarathos does eventually come out, which in a long enough fight probably would happen, because Ichigo isn't going to be going all out right away, that does change the narrative of the fight. Because now Zarathos, at his full capacity, is on the lower side, is on the side of multiversal, because he's able to go toe-to-toe with Mephisto, Galactus, those individuals, and Galactus is definitely a multiversal high individual. Mind you, his full outright power isn't as strong as someone like Galactus, but he's got like the penance there, which it's not something Galactus wants to deal with. So at that point, then Ichigo now becomes on the losing side of the fight because everything now that Ghost Rider has is amplified to the point where I do think he outclasses Ichigo in terms of the energy output there, which means now the Hellfire can actually do its job. He is arguably starting to affect reality on some level, which Zarathos can do. Ichigo wouldn't be holding back anymore. He'd go Bankai, which would amp him as well, as high as he can go, and they would be clashing, and they'd be clashing hard. Like this would actually be a cool fight for a death battle if they ever got around to it. But they'd be clashing hard, just blade to chain, Hellfire to Getsugatensho. The question now just comes down to who wins the fight. And I'm going to lean, if we're going all out, these guys are both going all out here. I'm going to lean on Ghost Rider's side. Now, there's two reasons for that. One, again, power-wise, they're going to probably be hovering back and forth for a little bit. It's not that I don't think Ichigo couldn't beat the Ghost Rider. Like I just said earlier, if he went all out, or if he's taking the Ghost Rider straight on serious, he could actually probably not murder the Ghost Rider, but whatever the equivalency of murder for him would be, at the very minimum, he would put down the Ghost Rider. Because power-wise, Ichigo would just does surpass the standard Ghost Rider. But Zarathos is definitely, at minimum, in the range of Ichigo. At maximum, it supersedes Ichigo by a couple degrees. Which means now Ichigo no longer has an effective countermeasure for something like the Hellfire. And the Hellfire is just going to keep burning him until he just burns to nothing. There's also the issue of the holy weapon matter. While I do believe Ichigo being a spiritual-based being and the Ghost Rider also being a spiritual-based being should be able to interact with each other and should be able to injure each other without the necessity for weaknesses like holy weapons, that doesn't mean I think he can put him down without something of a holy nature. I think without divinity on Ichigo's side, and I'm not talking about like Soul King divinity, we're talking about like the divinity of like holy magic and weapons and the church and all that. Without that, it wouldn't be impossible. I'm not going to say Ichigo gets stomped. Like I said, I don't think it's a stomp. I think these guys are actually going toe-to-toe pretty hard. But I think without having something that could definitely be exploited as a weakness for the Ghost Rider, I think Ichigo is just fighting a battle of attrition he ultimately will tire out with. And that's another problem, too, is that Ichigo's stamina, compared to the Ghost Rider, is on the lower side. He will eventually tire out. We've seen that in Bleach many times. Whereas the Ghost Rider just kind of doesn't tire out. So, long and short, it'd be a drag-out knuckle brawl of a match, and I'd be down to see it. I'll go with the Ghost Rider. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.